Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. Of travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Been to Tullamore, Seymour, Lismore, Mooloolaba, Nambour, Roochdore, Kilmore, Mooloolaba, Birdsville, Emmaville, Wallaville, Connemara, Connemara, Strathround, Proserpine, Alladala, Darwin, Gingin, Lilliquin, Muckdilla, Wallumbilla, Bougainville, Cumberland, Ramakiller. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert.
He's a good fella, isn't he? That's a friend of the show, Lucky Star, and a song called I've Been Everywhere, which of course every week heralds the arrival of our regional Roundup segment. Robert, who have we got?
Well, today we've got a person I call a friend, a lady who I've known for more than...
She'd probably be embarrassed to hear that, but that's okay.
She probably is. I've known for more than 50 years from the municipality of Wurdy-Bullock, as was I, now at Kingscliff in northern New South Wales. Glenys, Drayton, good morning and welcome to The Pulse.
Hello, Robert. And
Neil.
Don't think I've met.
No, you haven't met Neil.
No, you would remember if you had. You would be running down the street screaming.
Glenys, we go all over the place, mainly regional Victoria, finding out what is good about different places. We were encouraging people during the COVID period after lockdown to get in the car, go for a drive, see something a bit different, rather than perhaps normally flying in an aircraft to somewhere international. Now, you've done a lot of both. You've travelled around Australia in caravans and going to places, and you've flown a lot and seen a lot of the world. Tell me why Kingscliff is really good.
I stumbled across Kingscliff about 12 or 13 years ago, just in some of my travels. As you say, I'm an intrepid traveller. I've lived overseas and done all manner of things. But and as you know, Robert, I live sometimes in Aireys Inlet on the Great Ocean Road, and that's a pretty unique spot as well. And I kind of found like Kingscliff was a bit like Aireys Inlet, but different, if that makes sense. And so I started, we came here for a couple of holidays and then ended up buying in and just absolutely love it. So I actually live between the two places. So it's typical of, people my age coming north during the winter months. I've just come off the beach and I've got shorts and T-shirts on. It is the 25th of June. So it's a great place for weather. The infrastructure is wonderful, friendly people, all of the things that, I get down in that little coastal hamlet, except the weather.
Yes, and of course, just to upset our New South Wales listeners, that'd be on the mediocre Ocean Road, wouldn't it? As distinct from the Great Ocean Road that ours is on.
That's the mediocre.
Yeah. Or the average Ocean Road. So we were speculating earlier, you are very much in the northern parts of New South Wales. How far down from the Queensland border?
Well, I listened to the opening dialogue when the show started this morning, just for a few minutes, and I heard someone say it was about 20 k's south of the border. And here's a little snippet of information. I'm not sure that your listeners would know this, but Gold Coast Airport, or Coolangatta as it's known, the runway is divided between New South Wales and Queensland. So you can land in either, depending on the wind, you can land in Queensland or New South Wales and have to taxi back to Queensland, sort of thing. So from that border at Coolangatta Airport, we're 17 kilometres south across that border.
Well, that is two things. One, first of all, exactly the level of important disclosures that people listen to this radio station for. Yep. And I think we've nailed that. And I think that aforementioned person who sensibly said 20 kilometres from the border was me.
Yeah, because I thought it was more like 5. So Neil won the nearest the pin on that.
I go by minutes. It's a 12-minute drive to the airport.
And because we live where we live and we talk about driving to Melbourne, that could be anywhere between an hour and 3.5 days, depending upon what Geelong Road is doing. So generally I don't. I generally go by K's, you understand.
Yeah. And it is an international airport, Gold Coast, so
yes.
It's a very convenient location.
Glenys, living in both towns, we have a lot to do with the Great Ocean Road through my employment. And one of the things that noticed this year with an advent of COVID and lack of international travellers was a lot of businesses unable to open because of a lack of staff. Kingscliff, I guess, it requires tourism and travellers going through the town. Staffing, is it a problem up there as well for businesses?
Well, this trip, I was back in Areas Inlet just 2 weeks ago. I'd been down there for 3 months, and coming back, we travelled around through the Gippsland Lakes area and just, called into all of those little towns that were impacted by the fires, like Bem River, Malakuta, had a meal in the pub and bought some groceries, all that sort of behaviour right up the East Coast. And as you know, Robert, I run a business, a global business, and we can't get staff. It's almost impossible. And so all of these small regional towns, it doesn't matter what state it's in, we're in an absolute employment crisis. And up here we're seeing business owners that, they've been successful in their businesses for a number of years. Some of them are family businesses that have been going for 40 or 50 years. They've just gone, this is too hard, and they're closing doors. I think the difference with this part of Australia as compared to the southern coast, for all its beauty down there, the school holidays have started up here, and so this morning the beach is chock-a-block full. You won't see that in Victoria. So at least that's stimulating. People are coming here for the warmth over winter, so it does stimulate the economy a bit. There's a lot of infrastructure going on here. They're building an $800 million hospital only 5 kilometres away here in Kingscliff. It's called the Tweed Hospital. The other one's outgrown itself. So there's a lot of employment going on there, which has created a housing crisis because people working on the hospital need to live here. Median house price here in Kingscliff is something like, I think it's just over 2.2 million. So there are all sorts of problems that are existing around the country, and there's no one answer to any of it. I'd hate to be in politics. I don't know how they're going to fix it, but Kingscliff is suffering just like everywhere else.
Because one of the things and I can't remember who we spoke to, it might have been Sally down at Apollo Bay, that was having some difficulty finding staff, and it wasn't as much about finding staff, it was finding places for them to live, because with a median house price of $2.2 million, you're not going to be doing, backpacker rental rates. So
right.
As a result, people can't afford to live close enough to actually work there.
Correct, and this is very relevant here too, because although the airport is handy, Brisbane is 120 kilometres to the north, and Sydney, of course, is 800 kilometres to the south. So we're relying. It's interesting because areas like this become like a little cocoon of. They almost operate like a bigger city, but they bring in all of those regional areas to make it work. And, of course, we've been impacted by floods up here to a point that I can't even describe what happened. It's almost too hard to go back over it.
Glenys, when we were kids, we used to hear our parents banging on about bloody dole bludgers hanging around together down the beach and have dreadlocks and go surfing. Are you sensing, living both at Areas Inlet and Kingscliff, that there is still an element of people who could work but don't, or do you think we're sort of at that full employment stage?
Look, I've always had an opinion about unemployment. I think, around 1 to 2% unemployment is the reality, and there should be an industry around it in, supporting those people, because that in turn then employs other people. That's always going to be the case. I think. I'm not far from the Shire here. I'm only, 20 odd minutes from Byron Bay, and that's copped an awful lot of that sort of sentiment over the past number of years. And it's simply not the case. So, we need to evolve beyond that sort of nonsense. I employ, probably a half a dozen young kids who work in and they've all struggled to find work, and they're good kids. I would be horrified to think that somebody would refer to them whilst they were out searching for work as dole bludgers, and try living on the dole.
Yeah, Australia. Yeah, that's right. It's not the magical life that we were led to believe that many were chasing, because I don't know of any young person that's capable of working and isn't. So I sense it's a bit mythical at this stage.
Oh, it absolutely is, yes. And I think also the culture in Australia is that, it's just a part. I don't think Australians are a hard-working nation. I lived in the US for quite some time, and I was pretty confronted there, let me tell you, about work ethics. But I think the ethics here in Australia is really quite unique, and we are a hard-working nation. And in all fairness, we need to leave some of these young folk alone, and we also need to get these backpackers back. We need to create programs to encourage people back. I got out of Victoria, I think, on the 5th lockdown and just, skedaddled across the border because I just couldn't take it much more. And I can't imagine what it would have been like for people, in the bigger cities. And of course, came up here and everything was relatively normal here for a long, long time. We had, I think, 5 days of lockdown, which just meant that everyone went to the beach. And it was quite a different scenario here. And so right up until probably 3 or 4 months ago, I wasn't noticing what I was seeing back down south, but it's certainly hit here now. And we do need to get that international cohort here, and we need to find a way to get the infrastructure to support them.
Glenys, thank you very much for your time. I'll be in touch off air for a further chat about this and other things. It's a very interesting subject, but appreciate your time. Enjoy the bloody sunshine, you lucky bugger, while we take on another 13-degree winter day down here. Best wishes to you, and we'll see you back here soon, I hope.
Thanks, Rob. Good to chat. Bye.
All the very best.